I am sitting in my small apartment in Denver, staring at a text message from my mother. It has been 6 years since we last spoke. 6 years since I walked away from the family that chose my brother over me. The message is simple but heavy. They have lost everything. The house, the savings, the life they built. And now they are begging to talk. I close my eyes and remember that dinner table, the moment Caleb announced he had gotten my girlfriend pregnant, and my parents calling it God's plan. I wonder if this is also part of that plan. Before we dive into how I got here, let me ask you something. Where are you watching this from? Drop a comment below and let me know. And if you are curious about what happens when family betrayal meets divine justification, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you will want to hear how this story unfolds. Now let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in a tight-knit Christian household in the suburbs of Austin, Texas. My father served as an elder at our local church, a position he took seriously. Every Sunday morning he stood before the congregation with authority and conviction. My mother taught Sunday school and organized charity events. Faith was not just a part of our lives, it was the foundation. My older brother Caleb was 3 years my senior and had always been the golden child. While I chose to study electrical engineering at the community college and started working as an electrician apprentice, Caleb attended seminary school. My parents were thrilled. They envisioned him becoming a pastor, following in the footsteps of the men they admired most. I could see the pride in their eyes every time Caleb came home for the weekend sharing stories about theology classes and mission trips. My path was different, but I did not mind. I enjoyed working with my hands, solving problems with circuits and wiring. There was something satisfying about bringing light into dark spaces. My parents were disappointed at first, but they learned to accept my choice. They still loved me, or so I thought. At 24, I met Emma. She worked as a barista at a coffee shop near my job site. I had stopped in one morning for a quick cup before heading to work, and she greeted me with a smile that felt like sunshine breaking through clouds. Her hair was a rich brown, often pulled back in a ponytail, and her eyes sparkled with genuine warmth. We talked for a few minutes that first day, and I found myself returning every morning just to see her. After 2 weeks of casual conversations, I finally asked her out. She said yes without hesitation. Our first date was simple. We grabbed pizza and walked through the park talking about everything and nothing. Emma was studying graphic design at the community college. She showed me sketches on her phone, and I was genuinely impressed by her talent. She had this way of seeing beauty in ordinary things. 8 months into our relationship, I knew I wanted to spend my life with her. I saved up and bought a simple ring. Nothing extravagant, but it was honest and real. I planned to propose on her birthday the following month. I had already scouted the perfect spot at the lake where we had our first picnic. Everything felt right. Emma became a regular at my family dinners. My parents adored her. My mother would always hug her when she arrived and ask about her classes. My father appreciated her respectful demeanor and the way she listened when he spoke about scripture. Caleb was home most weekends, taking a break from his demanding seminary schedule. He was friendly with Emma, asking her about her design projects and offering encouragement. I worked long hours to save money for a down payment on a small house. I wanted to give Emma a stable future. We talked about our dreams late into the night. She wanted to start her own design business eventually. I wanted to grow my skills and maybe start my own electrical contracting company. We were building something together piece by piece. Then things started to shift. Emma became distant. Her texts grew shorter and less frequent. When I asked if everything was okay, she blamed it on schoolwork and stress. I wanted to believe her. One evening, I stopped by the coffee shop to surprise her, but her coworker told me Emma had left early. I called her phone. No answer. When I finally reached her the next day, she claimed she had felt sick and went home to rest. The pattern continued. She canceled dates, avoided my calls, and seemed distracted when we were together. One afternoon, I noticed Caleb texting her. When I asked about it, Emma quickly locked her phone and explained that Caleb was asking about a church charity event. It seemed innocent enough, but something felt off. I pushed the feeling down, convincing myself I was being paranoid. Then came the dinner that changed everything. It was a Saturday evening and my whole family gathered at my parents' house. Caleb drove in from seminary. Emma arrived separately, which was unusual. She normally rode with me. During the meal, The conversation flowed as it always did. My father discussed an upcoming sermon. My mother asked Emma about her latest design project. Everything seemed normal, until Emma suddenly started crying. Caleb reached over and took her hand. My stomach dropped. He looked at my parents, then at me, and said the words that shattered my world. Emma was pregnant. The baby was his. They had been seeing each other for 3 months. I could not move. I could not breathe. The room spun around me. Emma sobbed, repeating that she was sorry. Caleb explained that they had fallen in love, that it just happened. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to defend me, to be outraged on my behalf. But their faces remained calm, almost resigned. I finally found my voice. I asked if they knew about this. The silence that followed was my answer. My father stood up slowly and placed his hand on the table. He told me I needed to stay calm. My mother added that perhaps this was part of God's plan. I stared at them in disbelief. My father continued, saying that Caleb and Emma were clearly meant to be together by divine design. I argued back. How could betrayal be divine? How could what they did to me be part of any good plan? My mother tried to soothe me. She said that sometimes God's plans differ from our own expectations. My father reminded me that there was now an innocent child involved, and we had to think about the baby's well-being first. Caleb apologized, but in the same breath, he claimed he and Emma truly loved each other. Emma nodded, gripping Caleb's hand tighter. My parents asked me to forgive them and move forward as a family. I felt like I was suffocating. No one was on my side. No one saw the injustice of what had happened. I pushed my chair back and left without another word. I drove back to my rented apartment and sat in the dark for hours trying to process what had just occurred. The days that followed were torture. My parents called repeatedly, urging me to be mature about the situation. My mother said I needed to learn to let go as Christ teaches forgiveness. My father insisted that Caleb needed family support during this difficult time. I refused to attend any more family gatherings. Their response was to label me selfish and lacking in faith. Word spread through our church community. Many people sided with Caleb and Emma. Some approached me after services suggesting I forgive, as God forgives us. I felt judged and isolated. Friends I had known for years began to distance themselves. It was as if I had become the villain in a story where I was actually the victim. Caleb and Emma had a rushed wedding. My parents paid for everything, throwing an elaborate ceremony at the church. I was invited, though it felt more like an obligation than a genuine desire for my presence. I did not attend. I could not bear to watch them celebrate a union built on betrayal. My parents used their retirement savings to purchase a small house for the newlyweds. They gave them $50,000 as a down payment, calling it a blessing for their fresh start. A baby shower was organized. My mother went all out with decorations and gifts. The church community showered Caleb and Emma with presents and well wishes. I worked extra hours during that time, burying myself in electrical projects to avoid thinking about what my family was doing without me. When the baby was born, my father called. He asked if I wanted to meet my nephew. His name was Noah. I asked my father if he had ever once considered my feelings in all of this. He told me he understood I was hurt, but family needed to unite. I responded that the family had abandoned me long ago. My mother sent me a text with a photo of Noah saying I was his uncle and he needed me in his life. I told her he already had parents and grandparents. He did not need me. Caleb sent pictures and messages hoping for reconciliation someday. I blocked every number. I deleted my social media accounts. I needed a clean break. I could not heal while still tethered to people who had hurt me so deeply. I decided to move to a different city and start completely over. Denver seemed far enough away. I applied for a position at a larger electrical company and was hired within 2 weeks. I packed my belongings, gave notice on my apartment, and left Texas without telling anyone where I was going. I needed to disappear. I needed space to breathe and rebuild. Denver gave me the fresh start I desperately needed. I found a small one-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood. The company I joined was reputable and offered better pay than what I had been making. I threw myself into my work, learning everything I could about industrial electrical systems. I enrolled in night classes on project management. I wanted to grow, to prove to myself that I could succeed without my family's approval. Within a year, I was promoted to senior electrician. My salary jumped from $45,000 to $70,000 annually. I was careful with my money, avoiding unnecessary expenses. Every dollar went toward building a stable future. I started going to the gym regularly and running every morning. Physical activity helped clear my mind and manage the lingering pain. I joined a rock climbing club and made new friends. These people knew nothing about my past, and I preferred it that way. I could be whoever I wanted to be. I dated casually but never let anyone get too close. I was not ready for serious commitment. My focus remained on my career and personal growth. 2 years after moving to Denver, I was offered a project manager position. My salary increased to $95,000. I felt proud of what I had accomplished. I bought a small condo and spent weekends renovating it, installing custom lighting and updating the electrical panel myself. It was mine. I had built this life with my own hands. In my 3rd year away, I received a message from Marcus, an old friend from high school. We had stayed in touch sporadically over the years. He asked if I had heard the news about my family. I had not. Marcus proceeded to tell me everything. Caleb had dropped out of seminary. He never became a pastor. Emma had stopped attending her graphic design classes to stay home with Noah. Caleb worked part-time jobs that barely paid the bills. They constantly asked my parents for money to cover their expenses. Over 3 years, my parents had given them more than $100,000. Their retirement fund was nearly depleted. My father's hours at the church had been reduced due to his age. My mother took a part-time job at a grocery store to make ends meet. Despite their efforts, it was not enough. Marcus told me they were struggling badly. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me thought they deserved the consequences of their choices. Another part of me felt a twinge of concern. 6 months later, Marcus sent another update. My parents had lost their house. They had taken out a second mortgage to lend more money to Caleb, who promised to repay them but never did. The bank foreclosed, and the house was auctioned off. My parents moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment. Caleb and Emma also lost their house for failing to make payments. They moved in with my parents. 5 people crammed into a tiny space. The tension was unbearable, according to Marcus. Caleb and Emma fought constantly. He blamed her for not being supportive enough. She accused him of being irresponsible. My parents were exhausted, their savings down to a few $1,000s. My father suffered a mild heart attack from the stress. My mother fell into depression. Marcus warned me that they would probably reach out soon. And they did. My mother's text appeared on my phone one evening. She called me her beloved son and admitted she had been wrong. She detailed everything that had happened, apologizing for not standing by me. She cried through her words, saying she had been blind and thought she was doing the right thing. My father sent a separate message confessing his failures as a parent. He wrote that he had let his faith cloud his judgment and that he should have protected me. Caleb messaged too, saying he knew he did not deserve forgiveness. Emma sent a short note acknowledging that she had destroyed everything. None of them asked for money. They only wanted to talk. I read every message multiple times, feeling the weight of their regret. I called Marcus to discuss what I should do. He told me the decision was mine, but confirmed they were genuinely remorseful. I spent a sleepless night thinking about my childhood, the good memories, before everything fell apart. I also remembered the crushing pain of their betrayal. By morning, I had made my decision. I would not go back to how things were, but I would meet them. Not because they deserved it, but because I deserved freedom from the anger I had carried for so long. I replied to my mother, telling her I would come home that weekend. We would talk. The drive back to Texas felt surreal. I had not been on these roads in 6 years. Everything looked familiar yet different. I pulled up to the apartment complex where my parents now lived. The building was worn and tired-looking, a stark contrast to the beautiful home I remembered from my childhood. I knocked on the door. My mother answered. She looked so much older. Her hair had gone completely gray and her face was lined with worry and exhaustion. She hugged me tightly and sobbed into my shoulder. My father appeared behind her. He had lost weight and his eyes looked hollow. He embraced me without speaking, and I felt him tremble. We sat down in the cramped living room. Caleb and Emma were already there, sitting stiffly on the couch. Caleb had aged poorly. He looked defeated, his shoulders slumped. Emma was thin and pale, her eyes avoiding mine. My mother began to speak, recounting everything that had transpired since I left. She took full responsibility for her actions, admitting she had prioritized the wrong things. My father spoke next. His voice was quiet and broken. He said he had failed me as a father. He had used faith as an excuse to avoid confronting the real issue, which was that Caleb and Emma had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Caleb finally looked at me and said he understood that no apology would ever be enough. Emma whispered that she had been selfish and immature, and she knew she had ruined my life. A small child ran into the room. Noah. He was 6 years old now, with Caleb's dark hair and Emma's eyes. He looked at me with curiosity. Caleb introduced me as his uncle. Noah smiled and said hello. I looked at this innocent boy and felt sadness. None of this was his fault. He did not ask to be born into this mess. I took a deep breath and began to speak. I told them I had not forgotten what happened. I could not pretend it never occurred. But I also did not want to carry hatred for the rest of my life. I explained to my parents that I could forgive them, but our relationship would never return to what it once was. I would never forget the feeling of being abandoned by the people who were supposed to love me most. They nodded, accepting my terms. I turned to Caleb and told him I could not call him my brother anymore. That bond had been severed, but I hoped he would be a good father to Noah. Caleb cried, saying I had every right to hate him. I told Emma that I had loved her once, but now she was just a stranger to me. She nodded, unable to meet my gaze. I made them an offer. I would send my parents $500 each month to help with their expenses. Not because they deserved it, but because I did not want them to suffer unnecessarily. However, Caleb and Emma would need to support themselves. Caleb tried to protest, saying I did not have to do that. I cut him off. It was my decision, and it was final. I left the apartment feeling lighter than I had in years. The anger that had weighed me down was beginning to lift. I drove back to Denver with a sense of closure I had not expected to find. Over the following months, I sent my parents the money as promised. We exchanged brief text messages every few weeks, nothing deep or personal, just checking in. I continued to excel at work and was promoted to construction manager. My salary increased to $120,000 annually. I met Sarah at an engineering conference. She was a civil engineer with a sharp mind and a kind heart. We started talking during a break, and I was drawn to her intelligence and independence. We began dating slowly, taking our time to know each other. I told her about my past, and she listened without judgment. She thanked me for trusting her with my story. A year later, I proposed to Sarah at the same lake where I had once planned to propose to Emma. But this time it felt right. Sarah said yes, and we started planning our wedding. I invited my parents, but not Caleb or Emma. My parents understood and were grateful just to be included. The wedding was small and intimate, filled with people who genuinely cared about me. I felt free. Standing there with Sarah by my side, I realized I had finally built the life I deserved. I had chosen to forgive, not for them, but for myself. Forgiveness did not mean forgetting or excusing what they did. It meant releasing myself from the prison of resentment. I learned that faith should never be used as a shield for wrongdoing. God's plan, if such a thing existed, was not an excuse for betrayal. I also understood that family is not always a safe place. Sometimes walking away is the healthiest choice you can make. I did not regret cutting ties. I did not regret building a new life far from the people who hurt me. Now, with Sarah beside me, I knew what real love looked like. It was built on honesty, respect, and putting each other first. My parents and Caleb lost everything, not because of some divine plan, but because they made poor decisions. The consequences were natural and inevitable. I did not take pleasure in their suffering, but I also did not feel guilty. They had to face the results of their actions. That was not cruelty. It was simply reality. I have learned that sometimes the best thing you can do for people who have hurt you is to let them face the consequences of their choices. Not out of revenge, but because it is the only way they can truly learn. As for me, I learned that you do not need anyone's approval to live your life, not even your family's. I do not know what the future holds for my parents or Caleb, but I know my future is in my own hands, and this time I will not let anyone take it from me. So let me ask you this. Have you ever had to walk away from family to protect yourself? Have you struggled with forgiving people who never truly deserved it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you deserve respect, even from the people who are supposed to love you most. Take care of yourselves out there and remember that your peace is worth protecting.